know what you're thinking. Hey, Richie, what are you doing with that hoe? People used to ask me that in high school all the time. Really, just kidding, because girls wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole in high school. But this is fitting because today we're going to talk about hoes and plenty of other things. We're going to be talking about the agricultural revolution. All right, thank you, Keegan. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the British agricultural revolution. The British agricultural revolution is a product of scientific innovation. And keep in mind that where this revolution starts is in Britain and also in the Low Countries. That's the Netherlands, Belgium, that area. And this is where farming takes one of the biggest steps that it's taken really maybe since the start of farming or something like that. And we're going to be all set, okay? So keep in mind, I've got a little acronym for you, all set. Science, entrepreneurship, and technology. These are our three buzzwords for the agricultural revolution. Science, entrepreneurship, and technology. So first of all, let's talk about agricultural innovations, the farmer as scientist. And this is the old way of doing crop rotation, 3-field crop rotation, where in one field you would have wheat, in one field you would have oats, and one field you would let lie fallow. And you would rotate these fields from year to year. So going from one, the wheat field would be the oats field, and then you would let one field rest every 3 years. So you rotate every 3 years. The problem here, though, is that in any given year, 1/3 of your fields are being unused, and this is kind of bordering on unacceptable. The whole point of having fields is to use them, to grow stuff on them, and that sort of thing. And so what you see in the scientific revolution is a 4-field crop rotation. So out with the old, in with the new. In one field we're growing wheat, in another field we're growing oats, and in the other 2 fields we'll grow stuff that while wheat exhaust the soil, clover and turnips, they replenish the soil. So we'll grow things that make the soil healthy, and then we'll rotate those so that every 4th year something will be a wheat field or the oats field or the clover or turnip field. And this way all of our fields are being grown upon, or however we would say that. They're all being used. And more fields equals more food. This way we can feed more people than we were able to do previously. And as far as breeding animals, there has got to be a better way than this, okay? Just throwing them all in one place and just letting whatever happen. That's not very scientific. Let's think about a more scientific approach, and that is selective breeding. This is applying these scientific principles, that what would happen if I breed this animal with desirable characteristics with this animal with desirable characteristics, and enter science, all this kind of stuff that I don't understand. Ask your biology teacher or something like that. But woo, science, all right? It's cool, it's awesome, it lets us eat more. An example of this would be this Belgian blue cow, which what happens here is there's some kind of genetic defect, which the selective breeding makes even more so, kind of like some sort of Habsburg cow or something. And this cow gets bigger because of this genetic defect, and we can eat more because of this. Now note Belgium in the Low Country. So the Belgian blue cow, big cow. What does a Belgian blue cow say? Moo. That's right. Just like any other cow, it says moo. So much better. Now we've got more food, we've got better stuff, all thanks to science and innovation. Okay, so let's talk about this innovation. The farmer as entrepreneur. The farmer not just as some guy growing crops, but the farmer as a businessman. Okay, so here is traditional agriculture. We can see all of these people there. Now, note what they're doing there. If you look at it, I mean, you think about it, you see some people there working every once in a while, but really, most of these people are taking a break. You just see all these peasants working this common field that really doesn't belong to anyone in particular. That's traditional agriculture as it was practiced in the Middle Ages. And the new agriculture is typified by enclosures, okay? So instead of having this common pasture that we see here where everybody's animals go and here's everybody's fields and we all throw our stuff here, now with the enclosure system, you see that people are marking their individual fields and enclosing them with fences, unlike this other common system. So we start to see market economics, private property, and all of that. Now, as far as the downside, this did hurt poor farmers. They lost their traditional grazing rights. They could no longer place their cattle on the common land. Now, the upside, again, more food, all right? Agricultural production as a whole is becoming more efficient and more market-oriented. So while some of these folks are upset about losing their traditional rights, this is still resulting in more food, which is really kind of the whole point of agriculture. And there were people that were negatively affected, and a lot of them would go to these poorhouses. The English passed poor laws to try to accommodate some of these people who were displaced, these small farmers who were displaced. And so this is a workhouse that provided shelter, and you would spend your day working if you lived at the poorhouse. But once again, while it's unfortunate that some people were poor and that sort of thing, these bigger farms create, again, more food. So while we're on the topic of innovation, let's talk about the farmer as inventor, the farmer who is improving agriculture by making new agricultural tools and improving existing technologies. It's been a while since there's been innovation. In fact, Jesus' parable of the sower, where this guy's just walking around, just throwing around seed, and it gets, some of the seed gets stuck in the thorns, some of it falls along the path, some of it gets on the rocky soil. It looks like most of the seed in this parable doesn't get where it's supposed to go. Why? Because this guy's just throwing it all around, like, seed, seed, seed. There's nothing scientific about just throwing stuff around. So the scientific revolution and the mindset here is maybe we can apply some of these scientific principles to farming. So instead of just throwing stuff around everywhere, then maybe we can come up with some kind of machine. And that's exactly what Jethro Tull's seed drill does, is that it makes little indentions in the soil, and you put it all in the box, and it puts the seed where it's supposed to go, keeps it out of the thorns, keeps it out of the rocks, and keeps it out of the path. And so all of the seed is used well, okay? So that is Jethro Tull's seed drill. And then in the United States, there are several agricultural innovations. Thomas Jefferson, who was a big proponent of agriculture, came up with this moldboard plow. I'm no farmer. I can't tell you how it works. I can tell you, though, that it was a better plow than it existed before that. And then there is George Washington, who is known as first president of the United States. But what you may not know is that he built this awesome 16-sided barn. If you go to Mount Vernon, you can see a replica. And it is awesome, okay? Like, it's the coolest thing ever, literally product of the agricultural revolution that is going even into the British colonies, later known as America. All right, so that's that. How many sides on that barn? 16. All right, and then you look at other technologies that hadn't improved any. You think about the Bible, what it says about threshing wheat, where, the wheat is being separated from the chaff. You hear references to God's threshing floor. Well, even 1600 years later, people still knew what it meant to thresh wheat manually, to just throw all the wheat on the threshing floor and just hit it with a bunch of, nunchucks or whatever it is they're using, just hitting it, all right? And there is nothing scientific about just hitting it, all right? So how can we do this differently? How can we apply technology instead of just hitting it? And we do that with a portable threshing machine. Now, George Washington built this 16-sided barn for the purposes of threshing wheat. He had horses running around all in it. If you go to Mount Vernon, you can see it. It's awesome. Hopefully, I've made that point. But this portable threshing machine, you just put it in a machine and it threshes the wheat for you. It separates the wheat from the chaff. So more scientific revolution, inventive awesomeness. And once again, like everything else, better tools means what? You guessed it, more food. And then you can see here a bunch of data, and this data shows that the crop yields are increasing, okay? So if we look before this, if you go back to 1600, if you've got this seed being planted, it might yield about 10 bushels per acre. Well, by the time it's all said and done, you look to 1800, at the end of the 18th century, you can see that this is more than doubled. And so agricultural production is going up as a result of this. So while some people are kind of ticked off about the enclosures and that sort of thing, it is producing more food. And once again, you can see what's going on here with this British agricultural revolution, whereas from 1300 to 1600, agricultural production was relatively stagnant. You can see that agricultural production is steadily increasing during this time. Now, nothing like it'll increase during the 20th century, but still much more than it has increased before that. And so you can see that the amount of food has more than doubled. Whoa. This results, that was an explosion, okay? That's what happened to the population. It exploded. That can kind of scare you a little bit, but lots of people being born because there's more food and people are like, hey, we've got more food, let's make more babies. And so you have a population explosion in Europe as a result of this agricultural revolution. So, through advances in science, entrepreneurship, and technology, with the farmer as a scientist, a businessman, and an inventor, we can see that this agricultural revolution is producing more food for Europe, making it possible for Europeans to advance themselves in a way that they hadn't before. If you like what you saw here, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Plenty more instructional videos coming out every week. Until next time. I know what you're thinking. Richie, what do you do with that pitchfork? Well, people used to ask me that all the time when I was in high school. Wait, that didn't work, did it?